For months, social media has been flooded with claims that India's E20 ethanol blended petrol could damage engines, wastewater, threaten food security, attract insects, and even void vehicle warranties. The concerns became so widespread that the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas issued a detailed 10-point clarification to counter what it called misinformation. The government insisted E20 is backed by scientific testing, global experience, and strict environmental regulations. It argues that the program has already reduced crude oil imports, increased farmer incomes, and cut carbon emissions. But critics say official assurances don't settle every concern. Questions remain about long-term engine performance, groundwater use, food versus fuel priorities, and whether India's fuel infrastructure is uniformly ready. So, is E20 a carefully planned energy transition, or are legitimate concerns being dismissed as myths? Here are 5 questions on everybody's mind. Is E20 safe for vehicles? The government answers that comprehensive tests conducted by the Automotive Research Association of India, Indian Oil Corporation, and Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers found that E20 compatible vehicles suffer absolutely no drivability or component issues. In response to this, manufacturers have steadily transitioned to producing E20 compatible vehicles, ensuring that standard warranties and insurance policies remain fully valid and honored for all approved models. Critics counter that millions of older vehicles currently operating on Indian roads were never designed or engineered to handle E20 fuel blends. They argue that the long-term effects of this fuel beyond controlled laboratory testing are still highly debated, leaving everyday owners of older vehicles with major concerns regarding unaddressed and potentially steep repair costs. Does ethanol production waste huge amounts of water? The government clarifies that viral claims alleging it takes 10,000 liters of water to produce a single liter of ethanol are completely false. Industry distilleries require only 3 to 5 liters of processed water per liter of fuel, and they are legally mandated to deploy zero liquid discharge systems to continuously recycle that water. Furthermore, the state is aggressively scaling up the use of maize-based ethanol, which naturally lowers irrigation demands compared to other feedstocks. Critics argue that the government's calculation narrow-mindedly focuses on factory processing while ignoring the immense amount of water used for actual crop cultivation. They point out that paddy cultivation remains highly water-intensive across several states, raising serious concerns that local groundwater stress could rapidly increase depending on where the feedstock is grown. Does ethanol threaten India's food security? The government maintains that national food security is entirely safe because only certified surplus rice approved only after meeting all domestic food needs is diverted for fuel production. Additionally, maize is rapidly becoming the dominant feedstock for the program, which simultaneously protects core food grains and provides farmers with vital additional income through guaranteed ethanol procurement. Critics caution that unpredictable climate change and erratic monsoons could easily shrink or eliminate future crop surpluses entirely. They worry that locking vital food crops into fuel supply chains may cause sudden food price volatility during poor harvest years, with some experts arguing that a greater focus should be placed on overall agricultural diversification rather than fuel production. Is E20 really good for the environment? The government firmly states that ethanol blending is a proven environmental success, having already significantly reduced foreign crude oil imports and avoided millions of tons of carbon emissions. To ensure sustainability, all operating ethanol manufacturing plants are strictly required to clear rigid environmental evaluations and remain in absolute compliance with regional groundwater regulations. Critics argue that a true assessment must look at a full life cycle emissions rather than just tailpipe numbers, which means factoring in the carbon footprint of crop cultivation, heavy fertilizer use, and cross-country transport. They emphasize that the true environmental benefits depend entirely on how sustainably the food stock is produced, warning that expanding the program could never come at the cost of vital groundwater resources or regional biodiversity. Is the government overstating the readiness of the program? The government asserts that the E20 rollout is the result of more than a decade of meticulous planning, testing, pointing out that several countries around the world have already safely used even higher ethanol blends for generations. It maintains that India's fuel retail infrastructure has been systematically upgraded to handle and store ethanol completely safely. Critics respond that India's domestic vehicle fleet is far more diverse and economically vulnerable than those of the countries cited by the government. Because fuel stations, local mechanics, and everyday consumers are adapting to these chemical changes at vastly different speeds. Skeptics argue that a slower, phased transition backed by robust public awareness campaigns would be highly preferable to a rapid national implementation. The debate over E20 is no longer simply about whether ethanol can run an engine. It is about balancing four competing priorities: energy security, farmer incomes, environmental sustainability, and consumer confidence. The government believes that the science is settled and transition is essential. Critics argue that the policy should continue, but with greater transparency, continuous monitoring, and stronger safeguards. Ultimately, the success of E20 will depend not just on official assurances, but on whether its promised economic and environmental benefits are consistently delivered on the ground.